Welcome to episode 236 of the Necronama.com.
You know what's really scary? Book bans. Long a tool of authoritarians, book bans are a direct threat to our freedom to read. That's why Library Foundation SD, Brooklyn Public Library, and other partners across the country have launched Books Unbanned to fight this evil. This campaign makes frequently banned or challenged books available through a digital catalog to young people across the U.S., including states with increasing book bans. Like your local library, it's completely free to sign up. Want to learn more, including how you can help increase access to the books we love? Visit libraryfoundationsd.org.
Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003, offering a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, and cult classics. Officially licensed collections include titles like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Evil Dead, Creepshow, Jaws, the Halloween franchise, and so many more. Head on over to fright-rags.com. Make sure to sign up for their SMS and email newsletter to never miss a drop. Listeners get 10% off when they use the code NECRO10, all caps, at checkout. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And this movie really resonates with me because I'm never welcomed anywhere I go.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast that you're listening to. And James, I gotta tell you, man. I mean, this is too on the nose. This movie with some things about
like how,
feeling unwelcome in a place that's supposed to be welcoming.
I really thought it was going to be how Lachlan Monroe always looks young, but okay.
I couldn't mention like how he used to be an art critic. You know, he saw how this one painting was so lifelike and real, and it was textured.
Jesus.
Sorry, Dead Man on Campus reference.
Great movie. I love that movie. I still sing the sperm song. I hate to admit that, but now you have it recorded and you can play it for all your friends. So, Rhonda, the woman of many names, you are back again, and we love having
and
you.
Of many talents.
Here.
Yes, hi, yes, thank you. I love being here with you all. I'm always excited when you invite me. I'm Rhonda Jackson Garcia, aka RJ Joseph, and other names. I am every woman. I am a creative and academic writer, and I just love the show.
Well, awesome. How many times have you been here now? I know you did Candyman. You did.
I did Antebellum.
There we go. I was seeing it in my head, and I couldn't come up with the title.
Yeah, I think I did Master.
Yes, you did.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot. Like I'm just a regular buddy here.
Absolutely. No, and those are all great episodes. Everybody should check them out. I always joke that when you guys are here, it's my easiest week of the season because I kick back and I learn from both of you, shut my mouth and just chill, and it's wonderful. But legitimately, I want to say I love having you both here together because I get this great side of Don where he's normally the academic as it is, but when he gets to talk to other academics, it's so glorious to watch. So
I thought he was going to say when I did to talk to other Black people in front of him.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought was coming too, but I guess it kind of counts as a twofer.
Even when I don't play my persona race card here, and I don't pretend that I'm dumber than I am, you guys still do this to me. No, I'm kidding. I love it, but no, legitimately. I want to say I am so looking forward to this because I think that we're going to go places I haven't even thought of. And so I'm excited, and I'm going to shut up in a second by simply asking Rhonda the next most important question. Why did you pick this specific film?
Well, I picked this movie because I wanted to revisit it. I'm currently working on a book about Black folk horror, and I wanted to watch it again anyway. And this is just a perfect excuse to do that. And I'm really glad that I did, because a lot of stuff that I saw that I didn't see in the first watching, I was able to kind of really dig into this time around. So I mean, it was kind of one of those, oh, it was a pretty good movie, but also it's research, right? With the quotation marks and stuff.
That's how Don writes off all of his trips to other countries. Oh shit!
Hey!
Somebody edit that out later.
No, those are legitimate business expenses.
Right. It all works.
I just wish I could write. I wish I would get 100% reimbursement on it, but
right?
It is
That'd
what
be
it
great.
is.
Man. All right. So yeah, let's jump in. Rhonda, you feel free to lead the way and tell us where you'd like to start.
Okay, so with this one, we gotta start from the beginning because that was a lot for an opening.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of trauma and there were flashbacks to it throughout the whole movie anyway. And so I think that just opening up with these teenagers doing teenager stuff was really important.
No, I was going to say that I love the way that you said that, because that is the most honest and accurate way to describe this. It was teenagers behaving like teenagers, as far as like, I'm going to sneak away with somebody I'm interested in, and have our private time. Because one, even if there wasn't that stigma of homosexuality, right? The stigma that people put on as far as like, oh, you're being converted, or this is against God's will, or whatever it is. Even if that weren't the case, these are still teenage kids that are vulnerable, and they're worried about, does this person like me? And this person likes me, but we're not too comfortable letting anybody else know that we're together. And that would be with any interpersonal relationship that you're that you're made to feel vulnerable in. And if somebody else, I guess, tries to steal that joy, you're going to be less likely to make yourself vulnerable again in that same type. You're always going to be worried about it. You're always going to be on alert. You're always going to be looking for these signs. And not to jump ahead, but you almost get to the point where you're looking for so many signs that you can't enjoy, the existence that you have, because of this trauma that has kept you captive all these years.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, that is exactly it for poor Malik. He's not able to embrace the moment because of this big this umbrella of darkness that's on him because of that experience. But to be honest, he shouldn't have felt comfortable, because it was always there and it stayed there. So he lived this the whole time, like the whole movie. It was the whole thing. His whole life was this whole thing.
Yeah, and from speaking to people from any marginalized community, right? There's always that, I'm looking for somebody that looks like me or is from my background, that's in this area, that can assure me that it's safe. But then also there's the idea of, if I can't find somebody here off of optics that makes me feel safe, then I need to find somebody from within this group. But I'm always going to be on guard about what I share, what I talk to somebody about, what's going on, because I don't know what's going to be that one thing that is crossing the line with this group of people. Whether that happens, it could be something as far as like, I brought the wrong dish.
Sure.
It's something as simple as that.
Yes, it totally is. I mean, and this is one of those times when intersectionality played perfectly in this movie. I was really excited that the storytellers acknowledged that. Right, that they acknowledged that Malik existed on like these different planes of personas, right? And so I don't know that I've seen a movie really play into that as well as this one. I'll have to think about that for a little bit, but that's one thing that did stand out to me, was that it was very clearly a story not just about a gay couple, but a gay couple where one of the partners was a Black man. And so I could really appreciate that. So many times we have characters that are like these one-dimensional kind of things. And I'm usually wondering, but is there anything else to their life? Is there anything else to their existence? Like, are they just that cardboard person, or is there more? So I was really glad to have so much more about Malik, also in the way that he was handling his trauma. So he had some And I'm not a diagnostician at all, but I mean, there was obviously some repercussions to his trauma. So it seemed like he was also battling with kind of some mental health things too.
Yeah, and you're talking about the 90s, because after things are set, we realize this is something that's done every 10 years. You realize, oh, it's 95. Clearly, the placing of it and the conversations that are just then happening. Because we hadn't had that Matthew Shepard moment yet, where it's like, hey, somebody was brutally victimized. It got national attention, because a lot of these times it was, it was arrests, things like Bayard Rustin in Pasadena getting arrested for quote unquote degeneracy or whatever they called it, the charge, because he was engaged in a sexual act with another man. He got arrested for that, served, I think, the weekend, or maybe a suspended sentence. I can't remember. It's been a while since I looked into Bayard Rustin. But it was typically like logged in the criminal complaint or criminal files, as far as somebody was arrested for indecency or acts of immorality, right? And if somebody was beaten up, it was never beaten up because of homophobia or anything like that. It was reported as these people got into a fight outside of a bar, or patrons engaged in some. They weren't really discussed as this was an obvious attack on queer people, on the queer community, or on queer individuals, where nationally we weren't paying attention to that until probably Matthew Shepard. When Harvey Milk was assassinated in San Francisco, it was not treated as though it was it wasn't treated the same way, even with him being a political figure. With the AIDS crisis, it was, these guys are bad, because it was always focused on the men. These gay men are bad, and they're being punished by getting AIDS from God. So you always had this moment of like, it's all negative stuff that's attributed to gay folks. They're criminals, they're sex workers, they're on drugs, they're spreading disease, all these things out there, right? And then it switches in the 90s, where it's now, hey, there are gay. You're going to have gay neighbors. There are gay people on TV. Even with Ellen coming out on television, it was seen as a major event in the 90s that someone was going to admit that they were gay to the world. Right now, the most vulnerable secret you possibly have, you have to reveal to the world. And so now it's this idea of like, you don't be afraid. Don't be in the closet. Pride Parade expands. You had Don't Ask, Don't Tell being passed by the government, which was still a stupid law, because who the hell, it shouldn't matter. Right. But just the idea that, you don't ask anybody, don't tell anybody that you're gay. You can be gay, just don't tell anybody. And you can be gay, just don't get caught having sex with somebody of the same sex. The military rules are so stupid. But anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I like this thread.
You have this shift that takes place where you're having more presence of gay people in public, and people are starting to reveal themselves. You start to have a political agenda with one party that is now focused on expanding rights. You have one other party that is talking about family values, and how if gay people are recognized as quote unquote human beings, then we have to recognize their rights as quote unquote human being. And I'm not going to, Jesse Helms, Strom Thurmond, may they all burn in hell. But
yes, amen.
But as well as the other folks that were saying such horrible things about different communities. But you have this moment where things are changing. The Philadelphia had come out, and it had demonstrated that this is, people need to come to terms with their homophobia. You have, again, political positioning that's now demonstrating that gay people are part of society. They've always been here. They're always going to be here. Deal with it, to the point where in 95, when this is taking place with Malik's character, he feels so confident to tell the daughter, Kayla, choosing to live loud and proud is the bravest thing you can do. And this is all coming from decades. Oh, I'm sorry, not even decades, generations of people being told that they shouldn't be gay. You've got gay conversion therapy, which they allude to in this. You've got Pray the Gay Away. You've got all these different programs that would come up, and not to mention all the extrajudicial violence that people would enact on gay individuals for simply existing.
Yeah, this is I mean, all of that. Like I thought that it was now I think there's a rabbit hole I need to follow under. I wonder if there was any reason why the every 10 years was on the 5th year. But that's a whole thing. I didn't even look into that, so I'm gonna write that down to check into later. But I did think that it was pretty it was kind of brilliant to place it in 1995 though, where this story took place. Because this is like we had just had with OJ Simpson's passing just the other week. We've had that brought back into the spotlight. That was just in 94. And then there was the Rodney King episode incident from 1991. So choosing 95 was still placing us at a point where, like you say, Don, very aptly, that homosexuality is kind of one of these, look, you just need to deal with it. It's here, we're here, that's it kind of things. But Blackness is still something that was afraid, very frightening to a lot of people, especially Black men. And so the fact that Malik is the one that is kind of this point of view character, it was very brilliant in that way. Because regardless to all the acceptance and everything, like when he's talking to Kayla there at the end and he says, forget everything that I said about living loud and proud. It's almost like he's giving into the fact that we may be accepted for one reason or another, but there's going to always be a reason why we're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, and his facial expression, the actor, and I didn't know his name, but he was very heartbreaking. I know some people might kind of go, "Oh, though he's overacting," and I'm like, "No,
oh no, he was not
perfect. He looked utterly haunted and tormented, and I thought, man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I hope he never ever like falls for that Botox scam, because he needs his expressions, like that forehead rumple. That was like, it was really heart-wrenching. I felt that.
Oh no, and he's Jeffrey Bauer Chapman. He I was noticing the same thing. I'm like, I want to see him in more stuff.
Yes, right.
Because all the trauma that I'm sorry, not all the trauma, all the anxiety I felt came from his interaction. Like when Kayla, spoiler alert, when Kayla, meets her end, I didn't give a damn about Kayla. I did not care, but I cared about his relationship with her.
Sure.
And that was one of those things of like, now he's isolated from his spouse, from his partner, and now he's isolated from this child that, it's clear that he's raising as well.
Exactly.
And they have a good enough relationship where, with her being, I guess, in late teen, early adult period, like they have almost like a stepmom, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way.
Sure.
But they have a stepmom / older brother type relationship. And I'm only saying stepmom because of the way that historically in films, you always have that cool stepmom who really gets the kid, right? It's never it's rarely ever the stepdad, because the stepdad is normally like, he's the asshole.
Sure.
Right. But the really cool stepdad, cool uncle, cool older brother, he nailed it. Because I saw it. I honestly don't remember any interaction between Kayla and the father in this movie. And maybe it's because I focus so much on the relationship of Malik and Kayla. But Aaron, I didn't get any sense of the relationship he had with his daughter until he makes the discovery.
Sure. Well, exactly. And I mean, that was something else that I thought was really good about this take, because Malik was a very involved parent. He was the one that when she got in trouble with the cops, that he went to go get her. He's the one telling Aaron, just kind of, ease up on her. It'll be fine. She'll be okay. She needs she needs us right now. And I really like that depiction of a Black man as an invested parent, especially of a child that was very clearly not his child, like his biological child. So I thought that was really good because they did have an easy relationship. I mean, they're talking about their first sexual experiences, and like, he's telling her, this is, every first one you have is going to be an asshole. So, I mean, like that's the kind of a parenting relationship that you really aspire to. So the fact that they had it did show very much so that Aaron was very much the detached parent. He was the parent who really was he was the partner that was pretty detached from the domestic sphere completely.
Right.
Yeah, he wasn't involved in any of the unpacking or the setting up of home or the anything. I mean, I was kind of upset with him when he was mad about the surveillance system. Because I was like, you don't even care about what's happening at this house. Why do you care that he got a surveillance system?
Well, not only that, it's already set up. So like, how little attention have you been paying?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yes, it's crazy.
That's honestly, it goes into what I like about the writing of Aaron as well, though. You were talking about how Malik is bothered on these different levels, and Aaron is not overly bothered being gay. He thinks that this community will just accept them, basically. He doesn't really stick up for Malik when they're like, oh, that's your handyman or whatever they called him outside, and he's like,
the
gardener. No, that's Malik. Like, he's not like defensive. He's not, hey man, like, that's my husband. Like, I don't know, he's just always detached. But when you talk about how Malik is having sexual conversations with the daughter and talking about their first times, and that connection is so strong. You look at Aaron, and Aaron walks into the room and she doesn't even want him there. Like, when he's doing laundry, he's an annoyance, but it doesn't feel like she's mad at him. It just feels like, what the fuck do you want?
Right.
And I thought the writing of Aaron is one of the strongest parts of this entire film because he's so detached. And yet how well that works, pulling you into why he just accepts the community and thinks they'll just be accepted because he optically is white and I'm going to fit right in. People are already talking to me. Like, I don't need to worry about this. And his only thing that he's concerned about is the divorce. And he's like, oh, you wouldn't understand something like that. And it's like, like he can't even bother listening to Malik because Malik isn't on his level of understanding what he's going through. And I just wanted to say Aaron's writing is so fucking solid to me.
It is. He totally leads into all of his privilege, which I have these notes, and that's something I actually put in all caps. The privilege of it all.
Yep.
Aaron is completely that guy that leans into his whiteness. He also leans into his into that detachment of being the person who doesn't have to worry about home and hearth, right? So he that's a privilege to be able to just go to work and not have to worry about how the household is run, not worry about what the kids are doing, not worry about what anybody's eating, not worry about if somebody's breaking into the house. I mean, like, because really, you don't really care about that. As long as you can still go to work the next day, it's all good, right?
Yes. I'm glad both of you brought that up because for those who don't understand, who are listening, those of you who don't understand how privilege works, the privilege is just an issue of there are things you don't have to deal with. You have the privilege of not having to deal with X that this group has to deal with. So, James, when you brought up, he's leaning into his whiteness as well as what Rhonda was saying about leaning into whiteness and using that privilege. This is a great criticism of white queer men, as far as, cis queer men, where it's, I'm sorry, cis queer white men. I'm forgetting anyway. As far as being able to navigate that world, because I'm about to drop a history bomb on all of you. We have had one gay president, or excuse me, we've had at least one president who was recognized as a gay man in a same-sex relationship in U.S. history. And that was James Buchanan. He was married, quote unquote, married to Rufus King for 13 years. Rufus King was a former vice president. I can't remember if it was under Polk or whoever it was under, but he's a former vice president as well. And people in Washington, D.C. knew them and referred to them as husband and wife, as the dandies or the dandy couple. They called James Buchanan, because they were living together, they were married together, and they referred to him as Mrs. King.
Do tell. I love to see it.
Now, anybody who wants to dispute this, the historical record is there, the archive is there. It's just not something that's talked about that much because James Buchanan was a shitty president. But it doesn't remove the fact that that was not a thing that I would say any white candidates have been accused of. And I say accused because it's always seen as like there's some degeneracy in you. If you're gay, that's something we can get you on, right? It was brought up with Obama, but it was never brought up with Clinton. It was never brought up with Bush. It was never brought up with Trump. It's never been brought up with Biden so far. It definitely wasn't brought up with George H.W. Bush or even Reagan, especially with Reagan's policies. And by navigating that world, you can hide your queerness. You can hide your gayness, but you can't hide your skin color as effectively. I mean, there is racial passing, but you can't hide your skin color as effectively to where if you happen to be a white male like Aaron, let's put Aaron into the 1950s, there's no place that is off limits to him at all. There's nothing that is off limits to him. Any housing he can access, any bank funding he can access, any political office he can access because his credentials or at least his status is not going to come into question. Now, if you add to this, Aaron is a gay man. He's a queer man. I think we're getting too woke. We don't need a gay mayor. But he was perfectly fine until I told you he was gay. Yeah, but as long as he does it, James probably recalls in Pinal County in Arizona, the big scandal of the sheriff there was it was revealed that he was gay. And I say scandal because after it was revealed that he was gay, the local news did interviews. This is only about 10 years ago, I believe. Did local interviews with members of that community, and they all said, well, I wish he had told us he was gay before he ran for sheriff because I would have voted for somebody else. Now, mind you, all these people were saying he's a really good sheriff. He's tough on immigration. He's tough on crime. Great. And then the day after they switched to, I don't know if I could have a gay sheriff. So you can navigate that world until, that part of your identity comes out, no pun intended. But for Aaron, he can choose easily to deny his sexuality, deny his sexual identity, and use the full privilege that comes with being presenting a straight white male.
Sure, especially since he has a kid.
Oh yeah, easily. And he's had sex with a woman.
Exactly. Right. He's got a whole child as proof of that.
So you know what? It might even be Malik that got him to change. And if we do something, maybe he can change back to. I was thinking this movie was going so many directions. I thought like they were about to get kidnapped and thrown into gay conversion therapy. I love the pacing of this movie because right when I thought like we were going one direction, you got completely turned around and the pacing changed. So now it's this type of movie.
And then you hit the last.
Now it's this type of movie.
Then you hit the last 15 minutes, and now it's a very different movie.
Oh my God!
But the one thing I want to add to all that you just said is, I mean, I get political on this show all the time, so I'll still say these views are mine. You can't tell me Pete Buttigieg wouldn't be killing it right now. This guy would be winning in a fucking landslide. And instead, we're not even making him a candidate because, oh my God, he's got a husband. Like,
yes. Well, not only that,
the candidates that are there. Well, my mom, who straight out is a racist piece of shit, Trump supporting asshole, she would totally vote for Pete in a fucking heartbeat if he didn't have a husband. I'm just adding this because this isn't a 1995 thing. This is a fucking right now thing.
But again, it goes to what the Marshall's character was saying, which is that they're going to pick the vulnerable people, whoever happens to be the ones that don't have a voice, don't have support, are seen as the outlier, those are the ones who are going to be the victim of this. And America's always going to find somebody. And I hate to God damn it, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to quote Chris Rock. and I'm going to, well, I guess I can't quote Carlos Mencia because, he used to steal jokes and stuff. But there's the whole idea about Chris Rock talking about racism was this whole thing of like, all these guys in this country, all these, these country boys, these guys with guns, these conservatives, whatever, they're all sitting there saying like, it's like, oh, we need to take this country back for Americans. Fuck all these immigrants. And he said, yeah, the black people and Jewish people were sitting there thinking like, okay, all right. Yeah, we need to get rid of all these Muslims and Arabs. And they said the black and Jewish people in America are sitting there like, okay, nobody else sees this. And he said, and then screw all these Mexicans. And he's like, all right, come on. We know that black folks and Jews are next. That train is never late because America is always it's going to have this wheel of names, to use that app or that website.
Sure.
It gets spun, and then one of those groups, if not more, become the group to pick on. And right now, if they were to make this movie and say it's going to be 2015 or 2025, it's going to be the trans community. It's going to be the drag community.
Yep.
Because they're the ones that are being attacked relentlessly by these folks that are doing it just because they can raise money off of it. I mean, they really don't believe the nonsense that they're spewing. They're doing it because they can make money off of it by the idiots out there that believe that trans people are not human beings, or whatever they happen to believe. I don't listen to them, so I have no idea what they believe.
Well, even the guy said, I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just Googled a picture of Lachlan Monroe today, and he can pull this off. Somebody make a fucking sequel with trans people right now, because Lachlan can still do it, and he can still be this character, and it'll just fit together perfectly. Make it happen. All right, Rhonda, sorry.
Well, no, but I mean, that's actually perfect, because he did say there in the movie, there at the end, he said, but when the tides change, there's going to be somebody else to be afraid of. So we just exploit that human fear, and we'll choose somebody else vulnerable, and then we'll vilify them. What was especially insidious about them picking this queer couple in this movie, though, was the fact that Malik was already not believed. Anyway, he was set up to be this unreliable narrator. And so Aaron could always say, or even the people in town could always say, nobody's doing anything to you. We love the gays. We love the gays. We even have gay friends. You're our gay friend. So it's almost like they were in this trans, a post-homophobic era, when we know that that's not true. But the way that it's presented is almost like, what do you mean? Nobody's going to dig on you because you're gay. Like, we love gay people. People can love whoever they want to love. Like, really? You think that we're those kind of people? And the reality is, even if they weren't those kind of people, they were still very against blackness. And they still knew that a black man was going to make a really good target. But the fact that he was also gay just made him like this uber super target, right? So it was like almost perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna have my wife watch this movie later. I watched it yesterday afternoon, or the day before we recorded, and I forgot to ask her, and that now just reminded me that's what I was going to tell her earlier today, was to watch the movie so we could talk about it, because there is, sadly enough, I mean, you just think about how many people that this is not going to affect. So Rhonda, when you're talking about, you've got the idea of sexuality, but you also have Malik's blackness that's there. You got to think about all the ways in which people would make that same argument of, what are you talking about, police brutality? I've never seen the police beat up somebody. I've never seen this, and I've never experienced this.
Right.
So that can't be true.
Right. It doesn't exist.
Can't possibly be true.
It's really this crazy thing that I'm really thinking back on this movie now, and I'm thinking about how they were villainizing so many different things, right? So they were villainizing homosexuality, villainizing trauma and blackness. There was also the idea, though, that Malik didn't make his own money. And so there were a few jabs about that whole, oh, so you're just kind of the stay-at-home wifey type person while your dude goes out and makes all the money and all this stuff. There were quite a few references to that. So I'm like, that intersection might even have come across as class. I mean, we have no idea how much money Malik actually has. We just don't see him actively like having any in that moment. But that's how writing goes, right? Like, we're all writers, we know that's how it goes. You spend all your time doing stuff, you're not being paid at that moment necessarily. But the way
getting paid. This is news to me.
Exactly. So there's kind of these cross sections of the whole. You're just less important because you're just the stay-at-home parent person.
You know, that kind of rolled into my obsession with Aaron here too, because I felt like I was like, dude, I know why you got divorced. All right. And it didn't have anything to do with hooking up with this dude. But I really felt like he was trying, and maybe I'm just putting a lot on this, but the way it comes across, it felt like he was making a new housewife for himself. Yes. But the fact that he's picking up laundry in that one scene that I've already mentioned, I'm coming back to it because it's the only fucking thing he does in the entire movie.
Yes.
It's the only time he helps out. He doesn't wash dishes. He doesn't make dinner. Like, he doesn't do any of that shit. And I feel like he went gay and still got himself a stereotypical 50s wife.
Yes. Or wanted one anyway.
Yeah. He's trying to make one. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're spot on. Yes.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say, so you guys can jump.
Well, the other thing, though, too.
I know what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I know what it was. It was the idea that those same individuals, as far as Aaron's of her perspective, would make the argument that, well, they're working and taking care of the house by paying for everything. And I got to tell you, for anybody who still has that mindset in 2024. Even that wasn't a thing. There's still stuff you need to do in the house. Just because you pay the bills doesn't mean that you should just not do anything around the house. These are called life skills. Like, partners are not maids.
And then if you don't, then you're going to end up alone and doing everything yourself. So good job.
Oh, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. James. that is exactly it. I remember thinking too that Aaron was just a really shitty husband person. Like, I remember thinking, Malik, you better than me, bruh, because Aaron does absolutely nothing. He completely disregards all of Malik's experiences, his feelings. He doesn't even wake up in the middle of the night when there's these crazy noises. And I'm like, I could be married to a dude like that, though, because he's useless. Like, he's completely useless. You can get his money without having him in the house. And I know that sounds really cold and crude, but, you've been married long enough, get you some alimony or something. I don't know, take his kid from him or something, get some child support. I don't know, but you don't have to deal with him. Aaron was terrible. He dismissed every single thing that Malik was saying. And it just really made him a really bad partner. So yeah, James, I'm with you. I totally see why he didn't make it the first time around. I don't know why he thought it would be easier if he went to build a bride and got somebody else, because he was still totally flawed in his execution of this whole thing.
He's such a dick. He's even sick of hearing about Malik's most traumatic moment in his life.
Right.
He's like, oh God, not that again.
Yes. Oh my gosh. If Malik had turned around and murdered him, I would have kind of been that one old lady shaking her head going, yeah, well, that's bless his heart. But
It's one of those uses of the cast iron.
Right? Yes.
And he's trying to get threesomes. He's like nothing's good enough for him. And then as soon as he thinks Malik had a sexual encounter without him, then holy fuck, it's the end of the world.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, this motherfucker's been cheating on Malik. I'm telling you straight out.
It was like Reddit come true, wasn't it? I mean, I wasn't sure how to react to that. I was like, wait a minute, is he saying that he would be okay if the Matthew thing were to go down? Like, he's down for that, but like only because he says so. So you want to open the relationship, but like when you see that Malik could probably actually get it without you being involved, now you mad that you talked about opening it. I don't get it. But that's like Reddit. That's every Reddit letter, like from here till forever, you know.
What if that's how he met Malik?
Well, you got to even think about the fact that Malik is protecting Aaron for the early part before he even tells him anything that's going on. Because when they come back to, or when Malik comes back to the house and the F word, FAGGOT is painted on, spray painted on the inside of the house on one of the walls. Mm-hmm. His response is, I'm going to paint. I don't want to upset Aaron. I don't want, he likes it here. That's what's going through his mind. To where Aaron comes home and his response is like, "Oh, we're painting already." just the fear that you would have. But Ron, I didn't even think about it right now. That's the same thing that you had with, again, I don't like making this comparison because I don't want anybody thinking about it this way. This is what you saw with respect to civil rights wives, whether we're talking about Myrlie Evers, whether we're talking about Coretta Scott King. The idea of somebody sent a really, somebody's been calling all day and saying, just shouting the N-word over and over again, or shouting death threats, and reading, even watching the interviews with them as well as reading what, some of those case files. Right. It was literally Coretta would pick up the phone and your husband is going to get killed, blah, blah, blah. Hang up. And she just, they're just showing how she was the one who's picking up, and she didn't tell, Dr. King until later about the phone call. Like even the phone calls with, the FBI was sending, claiming that, it was him having sex with other women, which was very well captured in the movie Selma, where Coretta's like, I know what you sound like. But she knew that she knew that there were other women. And just the idea of you had to deal with all this because the idea that if I stop and I pretend that if I stop pretending that things are normal and things are okay, this is gonna derail everything, whether that's derailing this man's work in the civil rights movement, or it's derailing my partner's happiness because he's finding peace in this area. Yeah. And just the way that so many people protect their partners, their friends, their family members from stuff like that, because they're like, I don't want this to get back to you and stop you from doing what you're doing. There's so much depth to this movie.
It really is. I mean, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because one of the notes that I made was how Malik is always trying to protect Aaron and Kayla. And I understand completely protecting Kayla. She's a kid. And I'm not saying don't protect your spouse, but it was very telling that he went into protector mode, and as opposed to trying to get support from him. I think he kind of knew that he wasn't going to be able to get support from Aaron anyway. Like outside of the whole Aaron loves it here, he's got him some new little friends and all this stuff, and he's very well respected already here. I think it was even a more of a thing of, even if I tell him, he will continue to blame me as the problem, because he did that a lot. He kept saying, you always do this. Oh, you're so dramatic. And I mean, like the Black woman in me, having been partnered with, a spouse previously that just had no clue and didn't really care about a whole lot of these things, I thought, oh my gosh, that used to be my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that used to be my life. The whole I'm gonna not tell you that the kids are sick because you've been at work all day, you're tired. I'm not gonna tell you that the lights might get cut off because you already work hard enough. Let me go try to find the money somewhere else. Poor Malik was getting it from everywhere, and he wasn't able to rely on Aaron at all, like emotionally, physically, or anything. Financially, apparently, because Aaron was gonna always talk about, this is my money and I'm the one that goes to work and all. Right. And when you're going to bring some money in. So that was really heartbreaking.
You guys,
because even Malik explains, it's like,
You guys just did the
what'd
thing
we
I was
do?
talking about earlier where you totally changed my mind on something. Because this scene where he paints over the word pissed me the fuck off. I was sitting there going, why the fuck would you do that? You feel unsafe. Why are you covering it up and just sitting there? And that's me, right? And it's one of the two scenes I truly hate. I don't think you can talk me out of not watching the videotape the screaming banshee throws at you. But I'll give you guys this one. Like you put this in a different perspective for me. But like in that moment watching it, like it just took me out of the movie. I was like, why the fuck would you just cover this up? And so this is my point. What I said at the beginning, I was not joking. I really do learn so much from you guys and these different perspectives. And I just wanted to point one out in action. All right.
Buckle up, James. Buckle up. Here it comes. All right. So the other reason why you would have painted it, inside the house, because you're the only one who's going to see it. Like you're going to have to be forced to see this. This is not something that the offender would have to see. Right. And in my research, in one of the case studies I had, there was a couple in Phoenix, a black couple in Phoenix who had circumvented residential segregation and racial covenant contracts. And they ended up being able to buy a home in a whites only neighborhood. Now, again, this was only an agreement between the realtors, the bankers, and any developers. So there was no law preventing them. It was really, I'm a white person. I'm only going to sell to white people. I'm a white realtor. I'm only going to show this house to white people because of the realtor code that was developed in 1925 or expanded in 1925. So this one black family moves in and, they have the N-word spray painted. And I think from the description, they said that each letter was like 2 feet high, spray painted the N-word on the outside of their home. The guy in the interview, the gentleman in the interview, Lincoln Ragsdale, said that he left the N-word on his house until they for a few years before they moved, but left it there for a few years because, in his words from the interview, I wanted them to know where the N-word lived. I didn't want there to be any mistakes. I wanted them to know that I was living here. And I wanted everybody, and they did me a favor by putting that on the wall. So everybody knows I live here.
Oh my. Wow.
So for him, his wife was like, take it down. And he's like, no, I'm leaving it up because that's for them to look at and be ashamed of. It's not for me to be ashamed of. You did it. You look at it, but it's an accomplishment because I provoked that type of reaction from you just for buying a house that I can afford to buy. I'm sorry, James.
And I didn't mean painting over it. I meant painting over it and not telling Aaron. Like that's what upset me in the moment. If this was on the outside of your house, I would understand it more. But they've been in your house. So it became a huge security thing to me. And I know there's a security system and all that shit. But I'm saying in that moment, watching that scene, I'm like, I would definitely fucking tell them because they've been inside and I have to worry about Kayla or whatever her name is. So yeah, that was more my thing. Just like why would you do this? But no, like it makes sense listening to all this.
I get that. I mean, it bothered me because I would have said the same thing. I would have called the police and said, "Hey, somebody's in my house, or somebody has been in my house," and they would have turned it into, "Oh, it's just simple vandalism. Do you have cameras? Get a security system," and that would have been it.
Well, there was also the way that they were setting Malik up in the first place. I mean, so even if he called the police out or told anybody, all that was going to happen, like you say, Don, they may not have done anything about it, or they might have actually accused him of doing it himself. And then if they would have given away the hand way before they needed to, But the fact of the matter is, Aaron would have reacted in the same way anyway, and Malik knew that. Your man, he knew his man.
I mean, it's probably some kids being assholes doing something. That's he probably would have chalked it up to that. So yeah, you're right. We don't need to uproot our whole lives because of some bigots, because of some idiots, some stupid kids. We're staying here. Then he kisses Malik and asks him what's for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how he would have handled it.
Well, exactly. Oh my gosh. And I was just so angry at Aaron for most of the movie. Like, I really was. Because the other thing that really made me upset was when he's blessing Malik out about the alarm system, and it's like really just being ugly. And he says, you know what people do in the burbs? They do this. They leave their doors unlocked. And I was like, but you didn't y'all move from the city, and how do you know that Malik understands what happens in the burbs? Like, I grew up in the hood and I now live in the burbs, but I still do things the way I did when I lived in the hood. I always lock my door. My windows are all covered in my house. You know, like I don't have this whole leave the windows open so folks.
Oh, thank you, Rhonda, for saying that. I had that in my notes. I was like, black people don't leave the blinds and curtains open. What is this?
Do that. That's not a thing. I'm like, I don't care how many folks on this cul-de-sac do. I'm not doing it. We don't get down like that. Okay. And it was terrible, but it was kind of funny to me when Malik then, as a result, goes and walks into Matthew's house. Like, that was kind of funny because I was like, well, if this is what we do in the birth, they must want me to come in.
Right. But no, even that whole line about, people in the suburbs leave the doors unlocked. I wrote down, I was like, no, they fucking didn't. And actually, I'm looking at it. No, the fuck people didn't leave their doors unlocked overnight. No, during the day, yes, because if you have kids in a suburb, in a suburban setting, or in a rural setting, because it was the same way what it was for my grandparents, the door wasn't locked until everybody's in for bed. Mm-hmm. Because people would, constantly come in and out of the house. Kids would come in the house, from school. Then they go outside and play, and then they come back for dinner. And it was never a thing of like, you need to. I mean, if somebody's at the house, obviously, you need to have somebody constantly locking and unlocking the door. So you kept your doors unlocked during the day because of whatever interactions were taking place. So when he said that, I was like, no, people still lock their doors at night. It's not.
Yes.
It wasn't a
yes.
No, you left it. Those doors were unlocked in the suburbs and in rural areas because you had people going back and forth a lot of cases, and it wasn't like, why do I need to unlock the door to my own home when I'm coming home? If my wife is here, my spouse is here, my kids, whoever happens to be in this home, why would I need to unlock the door? They're already here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really thought it might have also been another one of those digs that he was constantly making at Malik, which again, I disliked Aaron. I mean, he talked about, well, you're the party guy. And I'm like, but you with the party guy, so what does that make you? I mean, there were just so many digs. And so it's almost like he's saying, you're classless. Oh, you poor. The poors don't know how to behave in the burbs. So let me teach you how we do this. And I'm like, no, first of all. And second of all, you suck, Aaron. You just really suck. Just so much.
Just jealous as fuck. But it's also a red flag of cheating.
Yes.
When you're cheating, you get paranoid as fuck that they're cheating. It's just an ongoing thing. Because if you're getting away with it, they must be getting away with it, right?
Sure. Right.
So, yeah. So again, Aaron's writing fucking superb.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to ask. There was a very important question that was asked in the movie. And it was about this whole thing about what do you call a gay Uncle Tom?
Oh my God.
And they were arguing over like, I don't think we have. It's just Uncle Tom. It's actually Uncle Lindsay.
Is it? Okay, see, because I really wanted to know the answer to that question. So I'm going to put that in my notes because I have it on my notes.
And I only know it's Uncle Lindsay because of those recent allegations with Lindsey Graham.
I was going to ask if that was why.
No, it was spelled differently because I saw it as an E instead of an A.
All right.
But
I legit thought it was because he votes against. Yeah.
Well, no, that in my head, that's who it is. And maybe it may have just been misspelled, or maybe they're trying to protect themselves, or whoever came up with the name. But no, that's who I see it as, is somebody like Lindsey Graham, who may possibly, because whenever people determine their sexuality, that is up to them, their sexual orientation and gender identity. However, if the allegations are true about this individual being a member of the queer community, yet they consistently and constantly do things in contrast and to hurt the queer community, that person would qualify as this.
Yes.
So it would only be appropriate for that person's name to be associated with that. So Uncle Lindsay is what I found online.
Okay, I dig it. Yep. Okay, sounds good.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's only a recent thing because there wasn't a term. So when they said 95, we don't have a term for it. It was like, well, wait, and I think it came up as like the early 2000s. So it wasn't even, with under the Trump administration, was under the Bush administration with DOMA. When they tried to, turn, I guess, make the only marriage possible between whatever they determined. If you want to get married, marry whoever the hell you want to, as long as you're both consenting adults.
Speaking of Trump, there's a great book called Trumpus, which has a character named Lindsey Graham Cracker. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I might have written that book. You should go buy it.
Oh my gosh. And what about now? And so, but see, James, you got me thinking about this because now I'm thinking back to Matthew's visit. That was so unexpected. And they're sitting there on the couch and Matthew is like doing all this inappropriate stuff. For a hot minute, Malik seemed like he might have been willing to lean into it a little bit. But then Aaron walks in and I'm thinking about that. The fact that he immediately went to, first of all, that Aaron immediately went to, hey, I think you were kind of into it. But also the fact that Malik was a little bit into it. I think that speaks more volumes about how terrible a spouse Aaron is. I don't necessarily see him as being very loving. Or being very comforting. And I'm thinking back to the different scenes. I'm wondering if there was a romantic scene between Aaron and Malik where Aaron was actually the instigator. Because everyone that I remember, it's Malik. It's Malik leaning in for the kiss. It's Malik wrapping the arms. It's Malik reaching out to touch his face. It could be that Malik is kind of touch starved. Not that I'm saying that there's ever a good excuse for cheating. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying,
but he was being drugged as well. So
sure, exactly right. And oh my gosh, because can we even talk about that? That was so insidious.
But I'm saying, even if he was sort of into it, like if they're drugging him and lowering his inhibitions, like that's going to play into it as well. So like without that, he might have still been not willing to act on anything.
Sure.
So,
Right.
That's a great point. Oh my gosh, because to drug somebody and then take pictures of them doing stuff they really didn't do, like beyond their consent, like that was so foul. And it also played into those stereotypes of Black men, especially Black gay men, being hypersexual and not being able to be trusted. Like there's a reason, there's really reasons why they chose Malik as the target, because it's a lot more believable that he had this insatiable sex drive, right? Or that he would just kind of freak on anybody that comes along. So that was especially nasty work. That was really nasty business.
And the writing gaslights us into it as well. Like it's constantly telling us that, so that when it starts happening, we're like, oh, there you go. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like you ever fully blame Malik, but I feel like it opens your mind to he could stray easily, and you're not, you're feeding into it basically. And also, just to throw this in, I love the way that people jump around whenever he's drugged. Like the
oh my gosh,
the people jump around. I don't want to call them other names until we talk about the ending, but yeah.
Right.
Like, I just want to know if that's a side effect of the drug or something they do.
I don't know, because I'm still trying to figure out how the phone calls happened. Like, even like when you're drugged, I can imagine that lots of crazy stuff happens. So either way, it was really effective, and it was really freaky. It just added to the whole freakiness.
Yeah, and not getting answers absolutely increases that.
Yes. I thought that I don't know. I'm looking at these things in talking about the way that his meds had been switched out, and that he wasn't able to realize that had happened. Like, that goes beyond abuse. Because again, I'm thinking about mental illness. If you really need your meds and then somebody switches them out to something that you don't need, then you're really not getting your care the way that you're supposed to. So they literally like looked into every aspect of this. I'm kind of surprised. I was really surprised that Aaron was not in on this. I really thought he was.
Well, no, Rhonda, even further than that, because when we're talking about marginalized communities, the other one that gets included, messing with the meds or not, is those who are suffering or dealing with mental health issues.
Yes.
Right. So talking about the 90s, this is still that, people are getting therapy. What's that like? In the 80s, it was always used as a joke, as far as like, we're going to ridicule you. Something's wrong with you. You had a weird relationship with your mother. That's why you act like that. Was the running joke through the 80s about anybody who went to therapy. It was, you got a problem with your mother, and you have a weird obsession with something else, right? And in the 90s, it transitioned to, here are these talk shows that are openly talking about mental health. Here are these news reports that are talking about this. Here now we're talking about stress in the workplace. We're talking about all these great things. But there was still that issue of, don't tell anybody you're going to get therapy, because they're still going to make fun of you. There's still something that's wrong with you. Probably the best medical advice I ever got. I'm sorry, the medical advice that anybody ever got came in the form of Mike Tyson after a fight, where he said, "I take Zoloft to stop me from killing motherfuckers." And when he said that, people were like, "What do you take Zoloft for?" Well, if you have a mental imbalance here, you have a chemical imbalance, you have all these things. And it became a conversation of, if you're dealing with stress, seek help.
Yes.
If you're dealing with this, we've got resources on campus, resources in the workplace. But there was still that stigma. It wasn't probably until the early 2000s that stigma really went away. But for in the 90s, it's now you're a vulnerable person that we can point at if some shit goes wrong. It's, he was a schizophrenic. He was bipolar. He was this. That's why he killed, his husband and daughter.
Yes.
That's why it happened. Because there's so many things that line up. He's gay. He's queer. He has a mental disorder, right? There are all these categories that he fits into right now, to where if this were on the page of the news, we're gonna choose the mugshot to print as opposed to the picture of him and the loving family.
Right.
We can understand him because that is a monster. That's an other. That's something not like us. Whereas if Aaron did it, it would have been a different positioning. Exactly. You don't see him as being part of those categories. It would have been, here's this picture of this man and his family that he brutally murdered.
Right.
Now,
right.
Did they sell what happened? Right. Did they sell trading cards of mugshots back then, or is that a new thing?
Oh, Jesus.
What?
I couldn't resist another shot at Trump. I'm sorry.
Yes. That is so, oh my gosh.
I thought there was an OJ remark, but anyway.
It's funny that, because me too, I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Like, which one? Which trading card are we talking about?
And the price of those just went way up, so.
Yeah, I saw. So did the price of Ford Broncos, apparently.
Oh my. Wow.
I discovered that there's a whole subculture within car culture of people with Broncos. They buy them the old, basically the same one that OJ had and Al Cowlings had, but they get them and they retrofit. They basically update them, and it was really cool to see what they did, because they showed like what it was like to drive one of those things without all the modern conveniences that you would have in a car, and then they did it after. I'm like, this is the smoothest ride ever. This is great. But yeah, it's I don't know, James. I don't know where do we go with it?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, there was also all of this, like when Malik was doing his writing, and he's listening to this guy talk about all these tried family values, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of really, really funny to me. I'm sure it wasn't supposed to be funny, but I found it hilarious that the infestation they were talking about, that these progressive values were actually doing to the country, was not the actual pest. It was not the actual infiltrator. It is not the actual monster. That the monster was hiding behind these values the whole time. Like, I thought that was really, really ironic.
Oh, look, every time he was listening to those tapes or watching the tapes, I was thinking, like, all right, where's the scene going to be where he's tied up in the basement and we're gonna do some gay conversion therapy on him?
Right.
You know, I was honestly, like, not saying that I didn't like this. I like this, but I would have also loved for that almost like the Stepford Wives, the original one, where it's like, I found out what was going on and oh shit, now I've been trapped and I'm switched.
Oh, that was cool.
I was expecting this to possibly go down that way. But it's also very scary that those folks that were preaching that stuff and believing that stuff are still around, because the gay community as well as the Black community got thrown into the business of these grifters, where they were making complaints about, like, 9/11 happened, and 9/11 happened only because of abortion, gay marriage, and I think interracial marriage. They might have thrown that one in there as well. You know, all these other things that happened, it was because we allowed, you know, gay people to get married, or we allowed, I don't know, trans people in the military. There's always this weird thing that they try and throw up as, this is changing the world. This is going to have such a deep impact on us. When it's not. It's just people living their lives. And the issue is they are free and you're not. And that's honestly what it comes down to, is where Malik made that comment earlier about, to read it out. I'm sorry, read the quote again. Choosing to live loud and proud is the bravest thing you can do. That's what any of these folks who are of that mindset, of the Christian preacher and stuff from the film, anybody of that mindset, they realize that they're not allowed to do that. They can't be their true selves because they're stuck into this system or this family unit, this traditional setup that they have. They can't escape it. But there are people who don't give a damn about doing it. They don't want to be that. They don't want to be a nuclear family. They don't want to, you know, go to church and do all the, you know, they want to do for themselves. And one thing, I'm just going to shut up here, but my mom has this big, like, she is a true Southerner, true Black Southerner to specify. Like, she was raised in the church. She was raised with respectability politics. She was raised with all those things, and it has shaped who she is. To this day, if there is a Black male who has dreadlocks, she hates it. She absolutely hates the idea of you know, men presenting in a different way than she's used to, or men wearing clothes that's seen as feminine. And I had to tell her, I'm like, Mom, you got to understand, the world has never seen free Black people.
Yep.
And she's like, what do you mean? I said, these are people that, because of status, fame, wealth, or whatever, they do not have to dress the way that society expects them to dress. They don't have to speak the way that society expects them to. The reason why you have a lot of conservative Black people that don't like it is because these people get to be their authentic selves. Not saying that people who are Black and conservative aren't.
Sure.
But these people get to be their authentic selves and don't worry about anybody else's viewpoints. Don't worry about anybody else's, feelings about them, because they are in control of themselves.
Exactly.
And it was one of those things. I didn't understand it. Not that I was against it, but I didn't understand what freedom meant until somebody was explaining, like, Will Smith's kids. Not Will Smith himself, but like Will Smith's his kids can do whatever the hell they want.
Yep.
They don't have to worry about anything, their lives. They can do whatever project they want. They can, I don't know, they can write books. They can do whatever they want because they have the freedom to make that decision now, as opposed to society making that decision for them.
Exactly.
Or have it being a heavy factor in it. I'm sorry, James.
First, I'm going to need you to keep Will's kids out your damn mouth. And no. I legitimately wanted to say Little Nas X is like the epitome of fashion. Like there is one on the planet. I am more fascinated by their fashion than Little Nas X. And when you put it that way, like my respect level just like tripled during this conversation. Like, I don't know, like now it's even more interesting and fascinating to me. Before it was just somebody truly just doing whatever the fuck they want, which I adore on its own. But when you add these other levels that I don't even think about, like that just, holy shit, that's so powerful. I love it.
It didn't make sense to me until about probably like 3 to 5 years ago, because I was looking at the way people were conducting themselves. And then those people who are raised in kind of that traditional sense of like, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you work your 20 years, you retire, within that time, you've started a family, bought a house, you've done all those things, right? It's when you see those people that don't need to do those things. And again, it's with wealth and it's with access, but then you also have people who don't have that wealth and access that are just out on the, you see them out in public and it's, oh my God, you're wearing that?
Yeah.
And their response is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can. And whenever I've had somebody ask me why about anything, like, oh, you're wearing this, you're wearing that, even my mom to this day. And she said, well, why are you wearing that? Because I can. Because I can't. And it's not like, a smart aleck answer. It's like, I have the ability to do this. No one has a say as to, what I have to do in this moment. So I'm going to do it. And that's again, this movie reveals that those layers that these individuals are having to deal with to navigate their world, but navigate the same worlds differently.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And also one thing that it drove home to me because of that, because of the fact that it shows these layers, it also showed how these respectability politics and these conservative or traditional family values, and that is said with the air quotes, how they provide the perfect mask for true monstrosity. So you're able to hide. Like when we find out what's actually happening, we go, wait a minute. So that whole nuclear family that is so-called under attack is actually doing the attacking here in this movie. These are the people that are actually doing this thing. And there is no excuse for it. Like, even though, because all this other stuff is where the privilege that they have as the traditional family and holding up those values is that the privilege means that they get to name the monster. They get to say Malik is the monster. They get to say everything about him is what we should be afraid of, when in reality, the monstrosity is right there. It's just right there.
Yeah. And there's so many people, again, when we talk about the intersection or even those relationships that you have with communities outside your own, you quickly pick up on the ways in which you have that overlap as far as the, whether it's a silent majority or if it's a oppressive group that doesn't realize that it's oppressive. That insight that you get between working with those different communities definitely demonstrates how out of touch like the dominant group is at times, because you'll see, group A, B, and C are all complaining about the same thing, or in the similar issues are brought up, and the dominant group, because they may not see it, experience it, they end up invalidating it. And then make you kind of question if this is actually happening, because we talked about it. I mean, I'll dog Aaron as much as we possibly can on this.
He has a very punchable face.
And there are these moments where, like you brought up, Rhonda, you're not sure if he's gaslighting Malik because he's part of it, or if he's just that damn clueless and dismissive.
I think it's actually stronger that he's not part of it, because that's so much worse to me. If he was part of it, there would be a reason for his inaction and a reason for his non-defense of his husband and family, and a reason for him to be this way. And when he's not a part of it, he's just a fucking dickwad who's doing nothing to help.
Yeah, I think you're right, James. I think too, though, that the fact of finding out that he was not in on it makes his whole focus on. There was that point when Malik was talking about, they were talking about the first sexual experiences and whatnot, and Aaron goes, "Oh, I was about 100 years old. Like you're gonna be." That was that.
Yeah.
Be dad Dylan, trying to protect his daughter's sexuality or virginity like uselessly. It doesn't make sense. It's really creepy and weird, but it was really full circle that this is the thing that he's worried about, as opposed to worrying about his husband, worrying about his very clearly deteriorating comfort and mental health. He's worried about his daughter's stuff. That's not for him to worry about. And I remember thinking, this actually makes a lot of sense now that we get to the end. That makes a whole bunch of sense. That this is what he was concerned about. That he was just loving that little flower that Tiffany gave him. And I'm like, hey, that's the same thing that we saw in the picture. And it looks very feminine like. This is totally not what I thought that was going to be. I really, really did forget that was the end to this movie. And so looking at it, I was like, it really went full circle. Aaron was worried about the wrong thing. And this is kind of what happens when you're worried about the wrong thing.
Yeah,
okay.
100%.
Oh, I want to go back just a second, because I think one of the other reasons why I dislike Aaron, I would say as much as everybody else, probably a little bit more, is I get the sense, because of the way that he dismisses what Malik is experiencing, because he fetishizes his partner. It's that idea of like, you were a fetish or you were a sexual interest that turned into something else, turned into something more. And I never thought about what I would have to deal with as far as like your background in this type of situation. So it's not just the idea that, hey, I'm a cis queer white man, and I'm welcome in all spaces because my whiteness and my masculinity open those doors for me. What is my partner going to have to deal with if my partner's with a different background? And what I see with Aaron, not that he says this, what I see with him is, it's the 90s, man. People aren't worried about gay people and interracial relationships anymore, because I've heard that every decade.
Yes.
It's like, it's the 2000s, man. Nobody's like, black and white people can get together and like, nobody's worried about it's the 20 teens. Come on, Obama's president. Everything's fine.
Oh, God.
But no, that's
you holding church here.
but that's what I get from him. It's I relate to you one-on-one, but I don't relate to any of the identity around you other than being queer.
Right. Because I don't
and you being my partner.
Right. Well, because I don't care to. I don't need to. Like, right. I am above you, you are beneath me, and so I need you to come up here where I am. And why can't you use these bootstraps? Darn you, Malik. it's just
not
really,
trying hard enough.
He's just not trying hard enough. Like, oh my gosh, the people are so nice, and look at you, you're just being all dramatic, and you being dramatic, like that is code for Black. You're being overly black about this. You're being
Yes.
overly gay about this. I'm gonna need you not to be so gay and so black and dramatic.
I will say this. Malik and Aaron make a cute couple. I mean, aesthetically, they make a cute couple. Sure. And I love that this is not treated at their relationship is never treated for comedic effect. It's never, it's never turned into Malik happens to be very effeminate, becomes a stereotype or generalization, and Aaron. They are as normal as a gay couple I have seen in a film or television show in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as any couples that I know have known, that is how some of the interaction takes place. Where it's, you're overreacting. It's really nothing. And the reason why I say this is because it's a normal relationship. This is the way that people conduct themselves.
Right.
And even the fact that there's never a point where Aaron's trying to figure out the problem. It's kind of like, oh, I'll just let Malik work on that project and stress. He's probably just stressed out about this, or probably needs to go to sleep. And it's not his problem because his focus is elsewhere, as everything else is. But there's so much that works with this film.
Yeah, exactly. There's also, and I know this was all the way in the beginning, but I think it went through the whole thing. How Malik was extra sensitive to the different things that were happening because of his background, because of who his experiences. So when there was like that beating on the window, and he was the only one to wake up, that was literally because of his experiences. Like he did not have the privilege or of just sleeping safely through different crazy noises that happen at night. But he also apparently is very used to trying to fix those problems on his own, because he went out and he cut the tree branch down. When the blood was coming from the ceiling, he's the only one that thought to look up, which again, I get that. I get it. You see all this blood, you don't know what's happening, where it's going. He's the only one that looked up. He's the one that's throwing out these carcasses, right? So he's having to deal with all this stuff, and yet he's also the one that's having to come up with the solution. So when he loads his gun, this is him coming up with another solution. In with the fact that Aaron is not being as helpful as your spouse should be. Yeah, I hate Aaron. I sure do hate that he didn't. I don't know. I would love to have seen his comeuppance on screen. But alas, we do not have that. There we go.
I also like the little breadcrumbs that were strewn throughout the film that were leading us a different way. The one that comes to mind is that picture that Malik just happens to see as he's on his way to the bathroom during a dinner party, and sees it, and that conversation between him and Marshall. Marshall's like, "Oh, this is my great something," and Malik notes that he looks very similar to the man that's in there, talks about how that the family line and all that stuff. But I love that it made it kind of question where we're gonna go with this.
Yes, you're right. That was wonderful. That was so wonderful.
Especially when it's like 1792. I'm like, all right, 1792. Let me write this down. This is gonna come back up. Okay.
That's when the ghost of Columbus fucked up again. I just like how he's like strong genes, and I was like, your son doesn't look anything like you. What the fuck are you talking about?
He sure didn't. Oh my gosh, he didn't look like either of those parents, right? I mean, that happens, but still.
I thought that was so funny, strong genes, and then I'm like, well, I mean, did you not? Are you not the dad?
Oh man, yes, it was. I think that this was a really good one. I was really, really happy to revisit it, and I'm super excited to talk about it with you two, because it's just it's sometimes it's hard to find people who will watch a movie at a certain level, and like this is my jam. Like this is what I do, you know. So when I try to do this, of course, with my husband, he'll play along for a little while, but when he gets tired, he's all like, okay, yeah, they no, okay, whatever, you know. but I'm always excited to see y'all's insights on these things, and to see things that I didn't even see in watching it, but also to know that I did not miss something when I'm like, I know that was the thing.
Well, even when the show is long gone, you can still call us up and we'll be like, yeah, let's watch that movie and talk about it.
Yes, I think we should do that. Like you saying that, James, don't play with me for real, because I would totally do that. I would love that.
look, if they don't ban TikTok, we can do it there.
Oh my gosh, yes, right? I guess we could. You could do that. Y'all might have to do that.
I'll get a puppet of myself so I don't have to be on screen.
I'll get it ordered today.
That would be amazing. Anyway, the only other thing I want to throw in here, I kind of hit earlier. What do you guys make of this? Like the ghosts they see? Like, is this part of the drugging? Like, he legitimately gets the videotape. Like, this part bugs me because it's so out of left field compared to the rest of the movie. Like, what's going on with these screaming women?
This is what I got with it. All right. He knows about, he starts figuring that something's wrong. The guy gives him that piece of paper that doesn't have anything on it, that he realizes he just needs to get it wet. I think it's the ghosts are that nice little metaphor to remind him of the trauma that he's gone through, but then also the anxiety that he's currently going through being in this place, not being listened to. So if the medication had already been switched, and having known people who've dealt with schizophrenia and other disorders, they will imagine somebody being there.
Mm-hmm.
They will imagine somebody handing them something. And it may have simply been Malik was looking around and found the tape, as opposed to it was tossed to him. It's just that's how his brain processed it.
What I found interesting about it from a symbolism point of view is you can really draw a direct comparison with hysterical women with these screaming banshee type things.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that just plays so well into all of this.
Yes.
And but again, it was like one of the parts that kind of pulled me out, even with the end that we haven't actually touched yet. But like, even with like that supernatural level at the end, like this still felt weird to me. And then on top of that, to get the tape from the ghost person and then not fucking watch it, that really bothers me. I'm gonna throw it on the floor.
Look, the video might have, served as a catalyst for a phone call that would have warned them about 7 days. So,
well, that would have been longer than. Oh, anyway.
But also though, I was thinking about, I think that was a manifestation of his anxiety, even if and his own his mental health deteriorating. But because being a parent of a teenager, like I have a house full of teenagers, and that anxiety manifests in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I almost want to say that not just the anxiety, but it's almost like a parental intuition. Like there's a whole thing that I wrote about before. That's like not believing women and children, and going to that whole, they're just hysterical. I think that as unfortunate as it is, gay men sometimes get lumped into this also.
Yeah.
Into that whole hysterical, dramatic, you're overreacting kind of thing. But I think that his dad's senses were tingling is what was happening too. Is like he started realizing that the focus that he was making at first was not where he needed to be paying his attention to. And so when it hit him, it was very appropriate that it was that ghost that helped to kind of precipitate that.
I like that. I like that a lot. I don't know if they ever said Kayla's mom's name, but I can't believe there isn't a part where Aaron looks at Malik and says, "You're acting just like Michelle," or whatever her name is.
Right.
Like that would have fit so fucking well in this.
It totally
and it would have been on brand for everyone involved.
Yes, it totally would have fit perfectly.
But yeah. So obviously the end we've mentioned a few times, but I really like how all of this rolls into bodily autonomy as well. Like
Yes.
everything with Kayla is about her wanting to control her sexuality and about dad trying to, I made rules so you can't do anything and that'll fix everything because I made a rule.
Yep.
And then we literally end with somebody violating the living shit out of her body.
Yes.
And I don't know. I wanted to know if you two would like to tackle that, because I don't think I can say it better than I just did, but I think there's a lot more to explore there still.
So I think you said it really well, James. Because she's violated in a way that we are not thinking about. Like we're led to believe that of course, her sexuality, her being a virgin, it obviously plays into this. I mean, the symbols are there. The flower blooms. That lets them know that it's time, that they can't let this other flower bloom. But the violation doesn't come sexually as what we're thinking it is, at least not on screen. It comes with a literal, you are violated your whole life, your whole body. I'm just gonna dig in and do this thing. That doesn't have anything to do with what we thought it did.
Yeah.
But apparently that was the magic in it, was that, of course, we sacrifice virgins. Like, of course, that's what we do. And it also helps that we have the only teenage boy around in town, apparently, because he's able to do all this seduction of all the teens. Like, he's sitting there. I remember when I first saw the kid leaning against the hood of his hot rod, I was like, oh my God, could he be any more of a stereotype? And
right.
to find that he was a stereotype for a reason, because it works. That was pretty funny to me too. But yeah, the violation didn't come the way that the dad thought it would, and that he was worried about the wrong thing. He was worried about the wrong thing. Like, you were worried about sex. Ain't nobody worried about that. That's the least of your worries, sir.
Yeah, I think that's
about this other stuff.
I think that's exactly what I was missing when I just said I think there's something deeper there. I think it's, my biggest fear is my daughter's gonna lose her virginity, and it's like, right, there's so much worse in the world than that.
Right.
Yeah.
And apparently it happened. Yep.
And then he's right there being inactive and failing. Great job, Dad.
This goes into the freedom thing, right? It's the idea that your child will consent to having a sexual contact with somebody else. So that is a parent who is worried about their child becoming free.
Yep. And he was made to look really stupid when the little says to her, "Oh, we can wait," and you could see her reflecting when they're petting, and she's like, "Well, I've never done this. I mean, I want to, but I've never done it." And the little guy goes, "Oh, we can wait." Well, now we know by the end of the movie why he wanted to wait, but it makes it seem like what her dad is saying is stupid when he says, "Oh, he just wants one thing from you." Well, no, he actually didn't want that one thing. He wanted a whole other one. So, and you can see her kind of doing the figuring in her head. She's like, okay, the math is not math. And Dad said he wanted this one thing. I'm laying this one thing almost on a platter, but the guy doesn't want it. I think my dad's an idiot. Is starting to think that, the teenagers already think that anyway, but she's really right that her dad, he was worried about the wrong thing. Aaron did not have his antenna up to be concerned about the things that Malik was able to intuit, not just through his own experiences, but just because of his own bond that he had with Caleb.
Right.
He knew he had to protect her. It didn't matter. He wasn't talking about, I'm trying to protect her virginity. He's just like, I need to protect her, period. End of story. Her whole thing, her whole being, her whole everything.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. As far as the different priorities between those two partners, their relationship with that child and the way in which they would prioritize their protection, where it's that stereotypical dad of, I don't want you to ever, I want you to always be my little girl, as opposed to the other partner who's making that argument of, I want you to live to become a woman.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, but, I do have one more question. What's with the guy on the bridge? Who the fuck is that guy?
You know, I don't even know.
It felt this is one of those things I complain about with writing. It's a great atmospheric moment. It's a great terror moment. It serves nothing. And like, I can't tell, like, is he trying to warn her of who these people are? I don't know what the fuck that was.
Well, you know what it did do was it facilitated a situation where the little guy, I don't even remember the little guy's name.
I like little guy. I think that's hilarious. Continue with that.
The little hungry guy. It did put them in a situation where he had to save Kayla, kind of building trust. I mean, because, you know, if he hadn't said, hey, let's get out of here, then, you know, she really thought that she was in danger. She may not have been in any danger, but when you feel like you are being rescued, feels like being rescued.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was just a plot point that was kind of overly overdone. I don't know.
It was just odd.
Yeah, it was. It was weird.
It would have been kind of great if he was there later, like hanging out with little man. And
but then again, I do have here in my notes though that one creature that they showed in the book when they showed the picture of the flower, and there was this like horned kind of creature. I think that person kind of seemed like they might have been wearing a sort of a headpiece that might have been like that. Like, now that I think, because I wrote it down, I was like, wait a minute, well, where was the horned creature? What if that was it?
That's interesting.
Like, they never say in the movie who all has to do the eating, right? Like, in order to be sustained. So it could be that they take turns. It could be that the monster beforehand was like, because that was a pretty stout person. So it could have been Monroe. Or it could have been somebody else in the community who's already had their turn, and now they're trying to perpetuate the little guy's turn to do his eating or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah, I have no idea. It just bothered me that there was no payoff to it.
Yeah, exactly. It was really weird, but it was noticeably weird.
I mean, overall, I still liked it, but there were just a couple points that really pulled me out and go, what the hell? You know, but what are you going to do?
Those are your girls, James.
But the scene where Kayla's ripped open and you know, the whole cult, for lack of a better word, is there, and that all made up for it for me. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, like she was literally flayed, and it was flayed as in FLAYED. I know my Southern accent gets in the way sometimes. But it was really something. It was really something for it to have been like literally just a we sacrifice virgins like idea. I was thinking, man, we did all that and we went all the way around Jacob's barn just to come back to this whole thing. Well, okay, I dig it. I like the way y'all did that. Okay, cool, thanks. Yay. But of course, the introduction of the next family, I'm going, of course, it's 2005. It's after 9/11. Of course, this is the family that would come next.
Wait, not only that, Rhonda, not only that, it was a Sikh family.
And well, exactly. And that is the family that came after 9/11. This would be the new vulnerable population.
And no, what I mean as far as like, it's not even somebody that's on their radar, right? Because people in America did not know the difference between Sikhs and Arabs
and
Arab Muslims.
Right. And that's the irony. They think that this is a perfect target, but they're really not.
And all I thought about was that line that he delivers of no one will question, no one will care.
Right.
There will be someone else to be afraid of. But that whole thing about no one's going to question it, no one will care. It will be like, oh, wow, poor family. They disguised, you know, they got confused with Muslims.
Right.
And then you sit there like, that doesn't make it any better.
It doesn't make it any better, but that would be the excuse, because any people with brown skin that look like they came from anywhere else are vulnerable population. So, oh my gosh, it was something. But I was pretty heartened when I saw the girl go up in the attic herself, and I was like, "Oh, girl, I hope you get to be the smart girl. I think I see a final girl here if we ever got a sequel." At least that's my hope for a happy ending, right?
No, look, I wrote the sequel in my head while I watched the credits roll. And I was just thinking, this little girl's going to go and tell them, and like, what's your last name? Hassan. Yeah, whatever you say, Hussein. What'd you say your name was? Because that's how horrible people were.
Yes.
To Muslims.
Yes.
Like you said anything to them, you're like, I think this might be it. We had a group of Muslim students that had the police called on them, including a SWAT team, when I was in grad school, because they were Muslims and they were, 4 or 5 people were living in one apartment. They were suspected of being terrorists. So they got, raided at 3:00 in the morning. Yay, America.
Yeah. Oh my God.
All right.
And by the way, no one was.
Go ahead.
We did have one terrorist incident on campus, though. We did. It was a white guy who tried to blow up the recreational activity facility.
Was he mad you took his statue?
No.
Oh my! Wow. Right. You just never.
That was the only terrorist incident. They gave all the Muslim and Arab students hell. And the one terrorist incident was completed, or tried to be completed, was done by a group of white students who wanted to create a distraction so they could rob a building on campus.
No, but isn't that sort of the way of it? I mean, it's the irony. It's the irony for me. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's where you're not paying attention. You're worried about the wrong thing.
Yep.
All right. Do either of you have anything left in your notes, or are you ready to move to movie recs?
I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good. We talked about all this stuff.
All right, Rhonda, you're the guest. If people liked this movie, what else do you think they should watch?
If they like this movie, I think they should watch The Inheritance. The 2011 with Keith David and I can't think of the actress's name, but that's some Black folk horror for real and with Black people. Also, Deep in the Darkness from 2014. These are both movies that I'm going to use in writing about folk horror. But this Deep in the Darkness had Sean Patrick. Oh, what is the guy's name? The little dancer. He was in a dancing movie with Julia Stiles, and it seems his name is Sean Michael Patrick. Maybe that's his name.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like this town doctor. So he goes to this town, and there's all this folk horror stuff that unravels. I don't think that either one of these were as gripping as Spiral, but I do think that they fit for like group watch.
Nice.
Okay.
All right. Mine is kind of ironic, given that it's a movie that Rhonda has done with us, and you should check out the movie and then check out the episode. I would love to watch Spiral and Antebellum as a double feature. I think there are a lot of interesting similarities while being completely different movies. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of screwing with time in different ways, and big secrets going on. And just overall, I think that these two would pair really well together. Plus, the performances in both are just outstanding. So, so there you go. Antebellum is my double feature. All right, Don. 584 movies.
I started off thinking like I can't think of any, and then all of a sudden it just flowed right back out. To Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. The Knock at the Cabin Door. It, as well as It Chapter 2, The Strangers, Rear Window, Vertigo, Hereditary, Get Out, The Stay, The Vigil, The Ritual, Scare Me, They Them, The Retreat, Cabin in the Woods, Sissy, Piggy, Jennifer's Body, Seed of Chucky, and if I were to actually do a double feature, it would be this one and American Beauty.
Interesting.
Okay.
That whole idea of things are not what they seem within suburbia, and people are not who they claim to be, as well as the whole idea of repressed sexuality.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up they, them. That'd be another really good double feature with this. Very, very different, though.
Well, that's it. That's all I got.
Sweet. All right, Rhonda, that brings it back to you. Where can people find you on social media? Grab your books, all that good stuff.
People can usually find me on the social media platforms. I just can't even list them all now because there's a lot. But I'm usually on them behind at R Jackson Joseph. I do have a website that I keep reasonably updated, RhondaJacksonJoseph.com. And I'm usually hanging out somewhere around there, even if I'm just lurking.
Sweet. Well, I guess that brings us to the end. So thank you for coming back and giving me an easy week. No, legitimately, I love listening to you too. So yeah, this is always my favorite. I highly encourage people to check out your other episodes.
Most definitely.
Like even Candyman, no matter what you think, Dawn and Rhonda hit shit that you're going to be blown away by. So just go check out the other episodes she's on because they're all fucking fantastic. And watch Antebellum because Jenna Malone is fucking insane in it. And I think watching her get her comeuppance is enough reason to watch the movie.
Y'all are always so much fun. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
All right. I guess that wraps it up for another week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm locking my doors.
And we'll see you next week here at thenecronomit.com.